If you'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. I'll take the roll call. Christine?
Here.
Art? Phyllis?
Here.
Larry?
Here.
Tony?
Here.
Tony.
Here.
Okay, so we have a quorum. For those of you unfamiliar with the proceedings before the Zoning Board of Appeal, there's an agenda up here. We'll take each case in the order that's on the agenda. The applicant will come in and present their request for a variance, or in one case, an interpretation. Anybody, any testimony here is sworn testimony, so you'll be sworn in if you haven't been already. The public will have an opportunity to comment, either those people in the audience or on Zoom or by phone. At the conclusion of the presentation, the record will be closed and we'll move on to the next item. At the end of each of the agendas being addressed, there'll be a discussion part where we'll vote. At that point, there's no further testimony or evidence presented, and the applicants can either stay till the end of the evening to find out what happened, or you can call the zoning administrator in the morning. So without further ado, let's do item number 1, Arthur S. May redevelopment.
And if I could ask the members of the board to just move your microphones down so they're not facing the ceiling, because we will get feedback if it's pointing up at the speakers.
Hello.
Okay,
All right.
you're still sworn from the last meeting, so you're still under oath.
Okay.
All right, so what's changed since last time? I think we wanted to get some better understanding of the size of the signs.
Yes, we submitted new drawings. We had reduced the size of the sign on the south side where the entrance to the parking for the property is. And I'd like to address, there was an additional comment from the county about the top portion of the sign. I guess they didn't understand that you can have a light background that's opaque and doesn't light. But then how does the black shine, the black light at night white? It's a vision film with very tiny pixels in it, so it looks like black lettering on a light beige background or ivory background. But at night, the ivory, which is metal and opaque, doesn't light, and the letters light in white. So we reduced the size of that sign from our original submission to the board. We would still like it to be a directory. We have 2 retail tenants at this time that are in the actual school building. So they won't have the opportunity, just as the one up the street, to have a building sign. And I don't know, I had pointed out there is no parking on that side of the street in front of the building, and I had pointed out that when you come through the arterial intersection from Main Street direction, the first 4 signs that would be on the building would not really be able to be read. And I don't know if you did a field trip or not, but if you drove that, you saw that's where the merge comes in. And I don't know about you, but you have to pay attention there, because there's always somebody trying to step
You
on it
just
and
close
come
your eyes
in
and go
front.
forward, that's all you
Yeah,
do.
just, and hope that they slow down or just hit your brakes, whichever it is. So really, we do want to continue forward with the directory sign. We have made it smaller. The
Right.
only other thing that I'd be able to do would be to make it a little shorter in height. Maybe reduce another 5 square feet or so. But also, a directory is where, even if you know where you're going, a directory is what guides you into your parking lot for those 7 stores that are in the front and the 2 that are in the middle building. We've kind of kept it low key. We've made it a monument, so that, and a decorative one, the one that kind of fits in. We've got the stone and we've got the brick with a base. It's going to be landscaped. We showed pictures of it. It'll be more landscape than you're seeing there, but because right now it's all fence and gravel and still concrete and all, we just kind of want to put some green there. There is a row of trees that'll be going in there. They've purchased the property next to it, so I don't know what the in-between there will be. That's pretty much all I have to add to it.
All right, so let me just confirm something. The single pylon that would go on the arterial,
Right.
what's the final size of that you're looking for?
I think we have that. It's what was listed in the public notice. It is 10 foot high and 3 foot wide, but it's actually less square footage because part of that 3 foot in width is the stone and the metal column. So just give me 1 second, you had it on here. Here we go. Here it is, sorry about that.
So the,
It is 14.4 square foot of signage, the one on the corner of the arterial.
well, I think that does not take into account the stone.
Correct.
Okay, so that's an issue, right? That has to be included in the sign, the size of the sign?
The middle piece isn't included?
So, actually, we're talking
On
the one on
this
the
one?
arterial. The one on the arterial.
The tall one?
Yeah, well, the way you have it on your thing here is exactly as I just said it, that, the applicant proposing actual area used for signage should be 14.4 square feet.
Right, that's your interpretation of the size of the sign. Our interpretation of the size of the sign is different, right? It includes the stonework.
Yes, for the tall one, yes,
The one that's 10 feet tall on the arterial.
yes.
Okay. So,
You're saying on
That was
this,
added,
for today, that it's requiring a 2.4 square foot variance, so it's not included on here, so.
That's what the decision.
On your agenda.
That's what the
Agenda
denial
says.
says.
well, my concern is that if we granted that, and you intend to make it what's just illustrated, you're gonna exceed the variance.
Okay, so this is incorrect then, the way it's written here. That's how I took it you were reading it, right?
Okay, I was doing it based off on the measurements that were given.
Right, so your thought was just the sign, the lettering part was the sign. I think our code incorporates
The entire
the whole structure.
monument.
Okay, so not as written that you have it.
So,
Well, I personally, I mean, I don't know how you feel. It looks nice not just to have a column with a sign.
just a second.
On the very last page of the 718, it says, overall height with base is 10 feet.
Right, except for this illustration, it's not just a sign. It also has
Oh,
a
okay,
stone.
I'm sorry,
A stone portion of it, which you intend,
Yes.
right, you want that to be part of the structure. All right, so for that to be considered, I think you need to make a new application, or we have to re-advertise. Lisa? Are you following me at all?
Yeah, I am. And, we looked at this, I know we revised the notice, but we should have it included, but I'm not sure that a prior application, I'd have to go back to the prior, agendas. I'm not sure that we didn't
Are you-
have a sign that was larger than this initially.
Are you freezing up? And I don't think we got everything that you said.
I'm not, sorry, I'm having internet issues at the moment. I'll switch to my laptop in a second.
Okay.
Did that come through? No.
Yes. Okay, is that? Okay, try again. When you're ready.
I'm not sure that we didn't have a larger variance noticed earlier. when we did a public hearing notice, so I'd have to look and see. I can do that while we're continuing this discussion.
Okay.
Our original sign on that corner was also, brought in as a directory the first time I was here, and that's
Right.
when we talked about making it a destination sign and changing it, and that's what this drawing was. And then, as I said, based on what I had, that had been written up and given to me, you were looking at it at 14.4
Mhm.
square feet, so if now we're gonna add that,
Well, it's up to you, whichever you prefer. If you want the stonework, which I think looks nice, or you just want the simple column with the lettering. I mean, I think we could, if you just want the simple column with the lettering, we could probably take care of that tonight. If you wanted the other structure, which I think is attractive, I think we would have to re-advertise it.
what's another month, right?
Right.
It's the fourth one anyway. And they have time. I'd like to leave it as is, yes. So,
With the,
because it was
this
wrong
one with
the
the concrete, with the stonework.
with the stonework,
Okay.
yes.
And also, I have a suggestion, and I don't know whether the planning board gets into this or not, but is there some reason why the signs don't have the street number on them? Or do you intend to put those on? Or isn't that some sort of regulation?
Some towns it is, some it is not. I mean, we can certainly put it on the base or at the very top.
I find that more
Of the
helpful in
column.
finding a location
Oh, sure.
than any store name.
Yeah, it could probably go at the top of the stone, would be the most visible in a black number.
Okay. Anybody have any comments about the one on the arterial? Go ahead. Well,
No.
or any questions?
Yeah, I do. I just don't like, why does it have to be 10 feet tall? It's not like you're on a high-speed road, it's only 40 miles an hour.
Well, I think they're entitled to 10 feet, right?
You can go 10 feet
Yeah.
and 3 feet wide, really?
Well, the 3 feet wide part, no, but,
This seems like overkill to me.
It's kind of a busy corner there. There's a lot of
That's
things
not-
on the corner as well.
There's nothing there, there's just the telephone connection box.
There's guide wire coming down. There's also a
Signal box.
condenser thing there, or whatever it's called.
I'm-
10 feet really isn't that high.
I'm just not comfortable with the 3 feet, I just think it's overkill.
okay. Phyllis?
I have no questions.
Larry?
No question.
Tony?
No question.
No question.
No questions.
Okay. All right, then, before we take any comments from the audience, then now I want to go on to the other side, the one on Raymond Avenue. Okay. I think there are concerns about that one also. How many stores would be in the old school building?
Right now, 2.
If it's fully, how many would you expect?
That I don't know. I don't know that there's gonna be more than 2 based on the way the building is and where the apartments are, so I think it may only be those 2.
Okay.
And
All
those
right.
are gonna be retail stores?
Yes. What I was told, yes. There's 2 retail spaces in there
I don't remember that.
that were approved by planning. I think the largest of any letters, other than the Arlington at the top, which I said we could reduce slightly in height, are like 4 inches, you know. They're not.
Since it seems that it's going to have to be adjourned anyway, is it possible to get a mock-up of the sign?
Different than the one you already have?
No, a mock-up of the sign. Something that actually, shows what it's going to look like.
Shows what it's gonna look like other
Like,
than paper.
like a model.
A model of the
Yeah,
sign?
yeah,
Not in the full size, I'm assuming?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, made out of, you can make it out of like an artsy kind of thing, but,
This is the first in 45 years. But I guess we can.
okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, I can turn this. Well, since she said that they could make the Arlington smaller, can we see that rendition? The smaller, the Arlington at the top of that sign?
Sure.
Because I think we need to do the least amount of variances we possibly can. So I'd like to see that smaller. I'd like to see the whole sign smaller, but, you know, again, I think it's overkill because you're on a really slow road there. It's only 30 miles an hour there.
I know, but you can't, only in one direction would you be able to, if you're at the light, to see the 15 square foot signs that are over the storefront.
I think that that's
Going the
straight-
other direction, you can't. If you've driven it, you know you
I
can't.
drive it. I've been here 76 years. I've driven it a lot, and I don't.
But that
think-
building
I
was
don't
just built.
think-
I mean-
I don't think there's gonna be any issue besides the size of that building. Nobody's gonna miss it. I would like to see a smaller.
Nobody's gonna
I would
run
like-
into me.
I would like to see a smaller rendition in total of that sign if I had my choice.
So typically, we ask for illustrations of what's allowed and then what you're proposing. So if you can do a mock-up of what you're proposing and also one that would comply with our code.
With the 12 square feet.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful to us. Yes, go ahead.
The Arlington at the top of the building, what are they gonna do with that?
Yeah, I spoke to Chrissy about that. That's not allowed within the thing. So if they wanted to keep that, I'd have to come back in front of you again. So I already know where we're going with that.
Okay.
Okay.
That was, like I said, they don't get advertisement. It's just to market the building, you know. Hopefully 100 years from now, it would still be there and be impressive that it was built that long ago. I don't know. I don't think it's urgent.
So Lisa, have you figured out whether it needs to be re-advertised or?
Well, if we're coming back next month, I would re-advertise. The largest one I just found was 31 and change for that sign, which actually might be sufficient if it's 10 foot by, wait, hold on, I think it was 23 feet in the June meeting. So it would, I don't think we met the minimum. So if we're coming back next month, we should re-advertise anyway.
Okay, and that's enough time?
Yeah.
That's enough time?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then, is anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on this application? I see no one in the audience. Anyone on Zoom? Yes.
If the only two businesses that aren't represented by the street, right? All the other ones have signs over their doors. Do we really need them on the Arlington sign? Couldn't you just advertise for the two that are in the Arthur S. May School? Without you having to repeat yourself, that you can't see when you're going 30 miles. I don't mean that, but
It's actually also advertised that this is where you come in if you're coming to the building and you're gonna park, because that's the parking.
I understand that's the point of the Arlington, but instead of having all of the businesses, couldn't you just put the two that you can't see by the road? By driving down one way or the other?
Leave just two there. They could also take their 12 square feet, use a quarter of it for a electronic sign and change it out, I guess, from tenant to tenant once a day, which
We don't allow that.
doesn't look good. I know
do
it's
that.
allowed 25%.
Can't do that here. But I think, the other option would be, could it say like parking for customers and residents, with an arrow? And then if you had a number on the sign, like you had suggested, then any business that's behind there could just say, come to whatever number, Raymond Avenue, and they'll see the sign to go park behind the building.
Well, that's if they call them and know they're going there. I mean, it doesn't, we
There's
thought we presented you with a very nice
There's a lot
sign.
of ifs here.
Yeah, I just think that's the tenants, right, are the issue, and I know the county had an issue with that as
They
well,
did,
but,
yes.
and I don't
Issue with
disagree
everything.
that if you have a sign on the building, why do you need the sign over there? So,
Okay. Then I'll move to adjourn this to the September 11. That's the next
Second?
hearing. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those, any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So it's going to be re-advertised, and then you're going to bring in 2 mock-ups. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And that brings us to item number 2, all space self-storage, 189 Manchester Road.
Good evening.
Hi.
My name is Natalie Quinn. This is my second time here, so I don't think I have to re-swear in. And let me just try and get this sharing. Is it helpful for the board, this is my first time coming back for an application, is it helpful to kind of go over all the information again, or just new information?
You can remind us.
Okay, great. And let me just share screen. Okay, is everyone seeing that presentation?
Yes.
Great, so we are here tonight for a zoning interpretation. We have a property at 189 Manchester Road, which is located in the, I think it's heavy industrial district, heavy industry district. Accessory residential structures are not permitted as a use outright within that district, but uses or structures accessory to the primary use are permitted. So the original interpretation was that a residential unit for a manager or employee is not necessarily incidental to the primary use of a self-storage facility, which the applicant is arguing there are examples of this use being accessory to this to self-storage facilities, and so that's what we're here today. So just some background for the site. So the parcel is a 3.422 acre site. The majority of the site is single-story structure, this self-storage facility, with an existing building on site that you can see in this first picture. It was originally a residential structure that was converted to an office space a while back and has been used that way for the past few years. This section I think is just helpful, although it's not as clear in the heavy industry section of the code that accessory apartments are permitted. I think this section 210-4.6 is just helpful in illuminating what an accessory structure would be used for, right? And we feel like these standards apply to our project, especially to provide additional security in a business district and specifically on this site, and to meet the housing needs of custodians of the principal business uses. So we'll get into that in our responses to your guys' questions from the last meeting, that the property owner does have an existing employee who has already kind of voiced interest in living in this housing because they're having difficulty finding housing in the region. So that's a benefit the property owner could provide to one of their employees. And then this was just, this is again just citing the section of code that it does say accessory uses that are incidental to the primary use. So that's what we're arguing, or we're requesting that this board make a decision on whether this accessory apartment is incidental. And then just real quick, I'll go over, we provided you with a letter. Let me switch my screen. So we provided a letter from the last meeting. We just tried to kind of summarize all the questions that were asked and succinctly give a response to those. So I'll just go through those really quickly. There was a question about whether it would be one employee or rotating employees, and no, this will be the full-time housing for an employee. So it'll be, over the years, that employee may shift, but it will be one employee or their partner, or, I think the unit is maybe big enough for 2 people to be living there, but it will be the primary housing for somebody, so it will not be on rotation. Are there other storage facilities that we operate? My client does have two other all-space facilities that do have on-site accessory dwelling units. There's 120 Salt Point Turnpike, and then 420 on New York Route 299 in Highland. We tried to do some research. Another question was whether other storage facilities have these accessory apartment units. We could find one that it looks like the Guardian facility at 3914 Albany Post Road. It does look like it has an accessory apartment on site for employee housing. And then, while not quite to the same intent, we did find A&L Self-Storage on 220 Overrocker Road. It's a multifamily development, so it's not quite exactly what we're talking about in terms of like this incidental use, but I just thought that was a helpful example in terms of, I think when thinking about not only is it an appropriate accessory use, but also is it harmful or detrimental, right? So showing that housing and self-storage facilities do exist next to each other, and that they're not negative externalities of either use upon each other. The fourth question that was posed at the last meeting was, we talked a lot about one of the responsibilities of the on-site custodian will be when former clients of the facilities kind of get trapped inside, right? Because you use a code to get into the facility, you also have to use a code to get out of the facility. If you have not paid your fees for your storage facility, your code gets inactivated. So what will sometimes happen is a former client who has not paid their fees will follow somebody else in, but not necessarily leave at the same time, and then they don't have a code to get out. And so what we went over here is there'll be a call button there, and rather than having to call a local, emergency response or something like that to get them out of the facility, they would press the button. The facility custodian or manager would go over to let them out and help them pay their outstanding fees. Is the apartment going to be at the only entrance? So here's a little, hopefully a helpful map for you all. So the larger arrow in the bottom portion of the corner is the main entrance to the facility. This accessory housing unit sits, or what we're proposing to be an accessory housing unit, sits just to the left of that. So that is the only entrance to the all space storage facility. So it is a kind of a controlled entrance that they will be proximate to. However, the house, because again, it is going to be a primary residence for the folks living here, it does have its own access drive off of Manchester Circle. So that will kind of be used for their own personal vehicles. This is not shift work, it's after hours facility management, so it's on call and as needed. If the employee works a 9 to 5, do they still live there after hours? Yes, again, this is their full-time housing. There's a question about whether it would be large enough for a family. So it's possible, but it's based on just the existing size of this structure, it's probably gonna be a 1-bedroom unit. So we're imagining that the employee who's interested right now is single and she would like to live there by herself, but it could support a couple as well. There's questions about how often this occurrence happens, where folks get kind of stuck inside. So 5 to 10 times a year. It's not an every night kind of thing, but this custodian will be there not only to assist folks in getting out if they are stuck in the facility, but also if there's later in the day visitors outside of the limited office hours that are currently operating, this custodian will be there for assistance. There was conversation at the last meeting about how often the facility, the office space is currently open. So it is limited hours, right? 10 to 2 on Monday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturday. But with your gate code, you can get into the facility anytime between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. any day of the week. So again, this custodian is there on Sundays, this custodian is there in the evening to help those folks who are visiting outside of office hours. And then finally, I hope I wasn't going through this too quickly, but the size of the facility of the office facility that we are proposing to turn into an accessory unit is 800 square feet.
Okay, so I have a couple questions.
Yep.
The one on Salt Point Turnpike,
Okay, yeah?
there's someone living there now?
I would have to check. I assume yes, if they're using that facility as an accessory apartment.
Okay, because I didn't see really any evidence of occupation.
Okay.
But let me ask you this, do you know how many self-storage facilities there are in Poughkeepsie?
No, a lot?
A lot?
Mike, do you know that
Okay.
question?
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I feel like you guys have seen, the planning board has seen a number of applications, yeah, so,
Okay. I think a lot is correct.
A lot is a good number.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, and just to be clear, this is an interpretation of the zoning administrator's decision
Yes.
that it's not a customary use.
That accessory apartments are not a incidental use
Incidental and customary.
and customary use to self-storage facilities.
That's the key language in the code. It's incidental to and customarily found. And, that's.
Okay.
Okay, so, Christine?
Yeah, I may have missed this along the way, but what is the building currently being used for?
It's a small office space right now, and so what we kind of talked about, I apologize that I didn't summarize this, that office space has limited office hours now. A lot of folks are just using their key. They do it online. You sign up for a storage facility unit, and you're using your key code to get in. So the act of actually visiting the office and needing those office hours isn't in high demand, hence the reduced office hours kind of limited throughout the day. So the property owners see it as a better use to provide housing for their employees, but also to have a 24/7 on-call residential unit there instead.
Thank you.
I do have a question. Like you said, there are many self-storage units in the area and many more coming online. Looks like every month or so. If for some reason this self-storage units fail to exist, you would not have anybody living in the house. We wouldn't allow that, and correct. And would the variance go away if the business changed hands?
Well, it's not a variance. Right. It's an
Especially
interpretation
if-
saying that it would be an accessory use to the self-storage business.
And no,
So
I-
if the self-storage business went away, I would assume then it would could no longer be accessory to it.
So if you opened up
And
a
then
self-storage
residential is not
business,
a-
it wouldn't go with you, would they have to go
Well,
back
the
and-
interpretation though, I think would carry beyond this particular case, right?
Okay.
Other self-storage facilities, if you interpreted it as being customarily incidental,
follow.
it would be a precedent for.
Okay, just want to be sure.
Yep.
Thank you.
Phyllis?
No questions.
I have another question. Do you know, how is it the one on Salt Point Turnpike became as a residence? Do you know how that occurred? Or how long it's been as a residence?
I did some research, and to me, it looks like it was missed possibly, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Missed. I mean, I don't know the answer.
I think she meant overlooked.
Overlooked, yeah.
Okay.
Larry?
No questions.
Tony?
And there's no intent to rent it out. It's purely a benefit to an employee, correct?
Well, it would be rented to an employee for, like, right, there would be a discounted rent for their employees.
But
It's
you
not.
have to be an employee to
Yeah,
live there.
exactly. It's not gonna be rented out on the regular market.
Okay, that's it.
Tony?
No questions.
All right. Anyone from the audience who wishes to comment on this? I don't see anyone. Anyone on Zoom? I don't see anyone there. So I'll move to close.
Just before the board closes the public hearing, I think you can hear me now. I switched computers and have a better internet connection. So what the board is looking at, just in case you need any more information from the applicant before you decide to close the public hearing, the board needs to make a determination that an accessory apartment is a customary accessory use to a self-storage facility. And that's really the only determination that the board is making in this instance. So it's, you know, whether it would be a benefit or whether it would be that's not really relevant to the decision that's before the board. The sole question is whether for the use that is a self-storage facility, whether it's usual, there's two different phrases. One is incidental to the principal use. That's what's in the definition of an accessory use. And then the other is any use customarily incidental to the principal permitted use. So there are places in the town where you're allowed to have an accessory apartment in commercial. That's in the neighborhood business and the neighborhood highway business and the Crown Heights overlay. But when the town board was enacting this, they purposely did not allow them to be in general accessory apartments as an accessory use, an accessory apartment as a standalone accessory use in this heavy industrial district. So in order for the board to disagree with Chrissy's interpretation that it's not customarily and incidental, you would have to find that, you know, most self-storage places have a apartment with them.
So assuming that we found in favor and supported the zoning administrator, could the applicant, is this going to be a use or simply an area variance if the applicant wished to proceed?
If the applicant wanted to proceed, it would be a use variance because it would be allowing a use, it would be seeking to allow a use that's not allowed in the zone. And one of the criteria for allowing a use variance is that you can't make there's no legitimate return on investment without the use variance. So I don't see how that, I don't see how that would be something that would be viable as an avenue for the applicant to pursue. Another criteria for a use variance is that it needs to not be a self-created hardship. And in this instance, I think since the applicant is desiring to establish this use, I think it would be deemed to be a self-created hardship.
Lisa, can you explain that a little bit more? Because I don't know if that was necessarily conveyed to the client that this would then be a use variance, right? Because accessory uses incidental to the primary use is listed as a permitted accessory use within the district, right? So if the board interprets that an accessory apartment is one of those uses, which is listed as a permitted use within the district, I don't know how the use variance would
Actually,
then...
I'm gonna interrupt you because
Oh.
I don't want to get into the conversation about the difference between a use and an area variance at this point.
Well, I think that makes a really big difference to the applicant, because I agree with Lisa.
I'm sure
I
it makes a
understand
difference to the
criteria for
applicant, but
use
it doesn't make a difference to us in
Got it.
terms of the interpretation,
Yeah.
okay? And so if that's a conversation you want to have with council,
Right.
Okay.
The only thing that I would offer at this point is, you know, the applicant came forward with one self-storage facility located in the area that has an accessory apartment in it. So based on that, the evidence that's before the board, I don't see how they could make a determination that it was a customarily incidental use to a self-storage facility. And the applicant may, if they did not clearly understand the mission, you know, their burden of proof on this, it's up to them if they want to potentially hold this application open and seek, you know, to submit something. That being said, the board has before it its own information that, you know, there have been a number of self-storage facilities started in the town of Poughkeepsie, and none of them, other than this one, have sought accessory apartments.
Can I
so
ask
do you
one more-
understand her suggestion?
I do. I think it's, I don't think it's for this board for it to be discussed, so I think we can have that
I think
conversation.
she's suggesting that you may want to ask for an adjournment to get more information to help support your position. I think, is that what you were saying, Lisa?
I understood that aspect of it, yeah.
Okay.
I just have one more question. So
Okay.
you're saying that these don't exist as accessory uses to, you know, incidental to these uses, right? But has it ever, it's always been outlawed, right? So you're saying it doesn't exist because it's always been outlawed, and we're trying to kind of bring the case before you that historically,
You can
or
go,
in
you can go
reality...
outside the town of Poughkeepsie, I think.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Outside of the town of
Yeah,
Poughkeepsie.
if you looked in the, like, say, in the region, you said, oh, there's 100 self-storage facilities in Dutchess County.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I mean, ideally, if a majority of them had
Yeah.
an apartment, that would be pretty compelling.
Yeah.
Even if a large number of them, maybe had it, then maybe you could say it's customary, right?
Okay.
I think that would be my way of
Okay.
explaining it. Lisa, do you agree with that?
Sure. I mean, and it's also not that it's been outlawed per se. It's, any use that goes with the main use is allowed. And so there has to date in the town of Poughkeepsie never been a finding that accessory apartments are something that goes along with a self-storage use. And up until this point, despite the fact that we have had a number of self-storage facilities come online, the board has never been asked to find that accessory apartments are self-storage. No one else is seeking this. So that's where the board's information is coming from now. So if the applicant wanted to provide information that, statewide or nationally or whatever, that it's common for accessory apartments to be part of self-storage facilities, that's the information that the applicant would need to come forward in order for the board to overturn the zoning administrator's determination.
So in that case, are you asking for an adjournment?
No, I don't believe so. I think the client and we have provided the case that we feel like this could be an appropriate incidental use.
That's not,
for-
I want you to understand, that's not the standard for us.
But
Whether
one
it's
of
a-
them was, right? The definition is just an incidental use?
It's incidental and customary, so that there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And
Well, one
so
of,
Like,
Go ahead.
for example, a garage is a customary use with a single-family home. So unless you can say to this board that accessory apartments are as common or, close to as common to self-storage facilities as garages and sheds are to single-family homes, this board, that's the legal standard this board has to do. The fact that the board may think that this is a great idea and it's a great use for this site and this building is not the standard that the board has to use. So it's not relevant to this board. And the accessory apartment standards that you cite don't apply to this particular case because it is not allowed in this zone. If your property were in one of the neighborhood business zones, those would be the standards and you'd be before the planning board seeking a special use permit, not to the ZBA seeking an interpretation of the code.
no, I feel like the opinions have been made very clear about the level of data and support that this board would want to make that determination. So I think we will not be requesting adjournment.
Okay. In that case, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? And that motion carries.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 3. Splash Car Wash, there's a request to adjourn that to the October 16th meeting? Okay. So I'll move to adjourn item number 3, Splash Car Wash, to October 16th.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. It brings us to item number 4, accessory apartment, a special use permit for 15 Jamil Court. Would you climb up and state your names?
My name is Gabriel Rodriguez. My name is Joe Rodriguez.
Have a seat.
What were both your names? I'm sorry.
My name is Gabriel Rodriguez. I'm the owner of 15 Jamil Court along with my wife Candace.
Okay.
How are you?
Do you each swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to provide tonight is true and complete to the best of your knowledge?
I do this.
All right, why don't you describe your application?
So my wife and I recently purchased this home with the idea or intent to provide a apartment for my mother who's aging. So the house has a finished basement that we would like to convert into a studio apartment for her.
Okay, and how big is the whole house? Do you know the square footage
I
of the
do have
livable
that.
area?
So the entire home. I assisted my brother with the design.
on the
The square footage of the home is
Design.
2,566 square feet.
Okay.
The apartment is 820, which is 32% below the code requirement.
Okay. And how much parking do you have?
It's a two-car garage. You could probably fit another 4 cars in front of that.
Okay. And there's some off-street parking there also?
It's a cul-de-sac, so there's a lot.
Okay. Are you on town water and sewer?
It is.
And is it, you testified that you purchased it, but it's an owner occupied?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. Those are the questions I have. Christine?
No questions.
Art?
No questions.
Phyllis?
No questions.
Larry?
No questions.
Tony?
No questions.
Tony?
Yeah, no questions.
Okay, anyone from the audience who wishes to comment on this application? All right, there's no one in the audience. I don't see anyone on Zoom. All right, then I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That motion carries. And again, you can wait till the end of the evening, or you can contact the zoning administrator in the morning to find out.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
That brings us to item number 5, 27 Southgate Drive. Is there someone here from that application? Okay, why don't you state your name?
John McKee.
John, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to provide tonight is true and complete to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, I do.
All right, why don't you describe your application?
I applied for deck replacement in the back of the house. There is a deck existing right now. The deck that's there is a little bit bigger, 12 by 23, I think it is, and we're putting a 12 by 20 deck exactly in the same place. Need a variance. You guys made us change the zoning, I guess, at some point, so I had to get a side variance, I believe it was.
Okay, and the diagram that you submitted shows that it does not extend any further or encroach any more on the side lot line than the existing house, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Christine?
No questions.
Art?
No questions.
Phyllis?
No questions.
Larry?
No questions.
Tony?
No questions.
Tony?
And no questions.
All right, anyone from the audience who wishes to comment on this application? All right, I don't hear anything, and I don't see anyone on Zoom, but if there's anyone hidden on Zoom who wishes to comment? All right, I don't see anyone, so I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Then that motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next. Item number 6, Vassar College, 157, 165 College Avenue. Apparently, I have to recuse myself on this one. Tony, you might take it over? Sure, thanks.
Can you please state your name?
I'm Brian Swartout. I'm the Vice President for Finance Administration at Vassar College. Ken Casamento, LRC.
Do you each swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to provide tonight is true and complete to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Yes. Could you explain your application for us, please?
Hi, so this is for the Vassar Institute project, which is the inn and conference center we're building for the outward-facing educational programs of the college. It's under construction, hoping to be open next summer. We are moving forward with the signage plan, so we're going to walk you through the signage plan today. We designed this plan trying to minimize signs, both in size and in number. So you'll see some that are a little bit bigger because we've combined some things together, but you'll also see some that are much smaller than they can be. And the whole point of that was to try and, fit within the architecture, create a nice experience, and make it clear how to navigate it. So as we go through, we'll talk a little bit about the reasons why we've come up with this plan and be interested in your kind of comments and questions. So thank you, and let Ken walk through.
Can I share the screen?
Yeah. Oh, maybe not. Wait, hold on.
Saying disabled.
Yeah, no, you know what? I changed that setting. Hold on.
No
Sorry.
problem.
Yeah. Go ahead. Now you should.
There we go. Thank you.
So we have, as Brian pointed out, we've taken a lot of time to walk through the site to cohesively come up with a plan for the signage. The site has only one access off of College View on the south side of the project here. You'll see it at the bottom by monolithic sign 1, but it does have a lot of frontage on Raymond Avenue. So the first sign, the monolith sign on College View, is 21 square feet total, meets the sign requirements for a monolith sign, total square footage at 21, but we do need a variance for the proximity to the property line. The reason we're looking for a variance is the property line is set back off the edge of the pavement, and we're doing some work within that pavement down here on the bottom on College View to further bring some green space out there. So it would put us approximately 34 feet away from the edge of the pavement. So visibility in this area, when you're looking down College View with the landscaping and proposed, would be very difficult to find the sign. So we're looking to put it almost at the property line, a half a foot behind the property line, which puts us at 24 feet from the actual edge of pavement, which gives us a little more visibility in this area. And it's our only primary access and entrance for the sign for people to know where they are coming and going in to get into the property specifically. The second sign is very similar. As a matter of fact, it's the same sign, just a little different language on it. It is on Raymond Avenue, because as you're coming down Raymond Avenue, although you can see the building, there's no real indicator as to where you would go to get into the building because there is no direct access on there. So we would need 2 variances for this sign. Again, one for the proximity to the property because we are located, again, so far back, and we want to maintain the trees that are there, and we're trying to work within that structure to not affect those trees. We've taken a lot of painstaking design to avoid those trees on Raymond Avenue. So we're looking to find a location that is visible, and as you can see, there's cars parking there. The further back we would go would have put it behind the trunks of the trees and get lost in also the landscaping along that side there. So we need a variance for the distance from the property line, and because we need a sign that is at an entrance to the driveway per the code, and we don't have an entrance here on Raymond Avenue, and we only have one on College View.
Before you go on, one of the reasons why we propose this sign here too is the building signage itself is much smaller than it can be in order to kind of fit with the architecture and not be kind of big commercial signage. So this will attract people around to the actual entranceway.
Yeah, as we get around to the building signage, as Brian pointed out, you'll notice that we're considerably smaller, very more institutional designed and very commercial design on those building signs. This second or third sign that we're talking about is a wayfinding sign within the site as you come in. As you know, the facility itself is 2 specific entities. There's the restaurant and the inn, and then the alumni house on top of the hill. So we're trying to create a sign that combines a few extra signs. When you look at the overall square footage of this sign, it's 13.5 square feet, where the code allows 3 feet for a wayfinding sign. But what's included in that, and as you described in an earlier application, it's the full box, as we've talked about. It's the entire area from 5 feet to 2.8 feet. It's not the actual lettering. If you boil it down, the lettering itself is only 3.325 square feet. When you put the space between it to allow it to just look appropriately, it ends up being about 8.62. So although it's big in its square footage compared to what's allowed, overall, it's taking several little signs like a one-way sign, a parking sign that would be along the way, and combining them into a more decorative, more appropriate sign as a whole for the property itself.
And trying to stay consistent with the other signage as we just showed you.
So here's just, again, a little bit of a breakdown. If you've squished it all together, it would be only 3.3. So it's not a lot of signage. It's just the way it fits and the way it's calculated per the code ends up being larger. The fourth and probably the most critical one is our handicap sign, which is 1.75 and doesn't need a variance. this building signage idea, as Brian pointed out. You'll see here, we have 4 building signs, 3 along Raymond and 1 along the back. They're very small. They're 4.5 square feet for the crossroads. It's just above the door. Again, the reason for the monolith sign is because these are small enough that they're more pedestrian oriented than vehicular oriented along that trail when you're walking along Raymond. That's located in the front entrance, which is the split between the 2 entities, the inn and the restaurant. The second sign is the Salt Line, which is just to the north of the entrance, and I'll show you it in a minute, its location. It's actually on the glass, and I believe that's exempt. Chrissy can speak to that specifically, but it's only 2 square feet as well, and that is on the front of the door in glass. And then the third sign is facing north, but it's still facing Raymond. It's the Salt Line, and that's 7.5 square feet. And again, it's small, it's incidental on the building. It's not intended for vehicular traffic along the road, really. It's more just identifier as you're walking down Raymond Avenue, most likely. A motorist wouldn't see it beyond the landscaping and everything else that's there. So that really leads to why the monolith sign in the front is requested. And the fourth sign is really in the back of the building, so to speak. It is in our main entrance from the parking area. It's a crossroads. It's very similar to the one in the front. It's 4.5 square feet. The reason we need a variance here is because it's not directly facing a public road. What you'll see though is it is facing our parking lot as best as we can. There is no sign proposed that would be on the west end of the inn because there is no public access into that area. So as people would be walking, although small, it's trying to help organize and get people to walk into the building itself and not try to walk towards an entrance that may be emergency access or type entrance to the building. So that's really it in a nutshell for where we are right now.
So just to clarify, so signs 1 and signs 2 are same size?
Same size, correct. 21 square feet, they're the same monolith. A little different language that's on it because of the locations, but it is the same. And they would need variances for proximity, not for size.
I don't have any other questions. Chris, do you have any questions?
Not at the moment, I'm looking at this.
Art?
Sure do. Your second monolith sign that's gonna be out on Raymond Avenue,
Yes.
I just don't like the size of it. If you moved it down closer to the corner of College View, College, whatever it is, the other street, could you make it smaller and still do the same thing? Because you wouldn't have as many trees, I don't believe, and it'd be just before your turn anyway.
Hold on, moving up there. So, whoops, I just missed it.
Yes, you did.
There. The issue in there is the property line kind of, if you look at here, it's back in here. We could try and sneak it in right in this corner in here, is where you're thinking? In that corner here.
Well, you'd have less trees, number one. Right?
Yeah, it would be almost in the front here by the intersection of the
Right.
two.
And you could probably get away with a smaller sign.
We might be able to do
Possibly.
something like that.
I'd be more inclined, myself, I'd be more inclined to that because I don't think you're gonna see that sign anyway with cars parked there or a truck parked there.
Just behind this car is a loading zone. That's there.
Only if it's enforced by the police. Okay, so that was my first question on that one. The sign, the various signs on the building, are they gonna be any backlight or face lit or anything like that? It'd just be,
They,
like this.
if I'm not mistaken, they are inlit from themselves, backlit.
Okay.
The signs, the big signs are uplit right along.
These signs.
Yes. Yep. And there's a small LED bar down at the bottom that's directed it's not on here, it's on the ground, but it's directed right at the sign itself. Because these are stone-faced signs.
I think that's it for right now, but my main concern was the second monolith sign.
The size of the mono.
Yeah, that's enough.
Phyllis, do you have any questions?
Could you talk about how much light the sign on College Avenue is going to produce, and is it going to be turned off? That's a residential area, so.
It is
How
a
are you
residential
managing?
area. The hotel is open all the time, you know, because anyone can come at different hours of the night. I would think it's on 24/7. But, you know, we've taken a lot of time, and I don't have an exact light level specifically to be able to cite for you. But the college has taken a lot of time to work in that area to keep our lighting levels low. We're actually working with the residents to actually increase the lighting levels in this area because they're concerned about walking in that area. Just in general, it's too dark. So we're looking at Central Hudson lights on the poles themselves, the street poles, to help facilitate some of that lighting. So our goal isn't to overlight this. Again, the whole goal of the school has been to design these to be as minimal as possible. So I would think they're just lit enough to see, but they're not going to be a super bright sign.
You're not supposed to have a light beyond the sign. It should be directed directly at the sign, to try and keep it right on the sign, and that's it.
Because we do have to meet, you know, all the compliant lighting requirements per the code.
Thank you.
All right, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Tony?
No questions.
Okay. So I think we're okay. We'll open it up to the public.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to comment on this application?
Ken, can you
Ken,
stop,
if you could
can you
stop
stop
sharing.
sharing your
Sorry.
screen? Yeah,
Apologize.
that's all right.
Thank you.
There's one person on Zoom.
Oh, that's Ken
That's Ken.
and Lisa. Yeah. So there's actually no one on Zoom.
There's nobody on Zoom. So I think we're.
Do you want to adjourn and see if they, did they want to come back with some thoughts about ARC's questions? I mean, that,
Can I ask a question? How does the process work? So there's a question about the one sign. I don't know if you're comfortable with the others, and are they separate decisions, or is it all at once?
I mean, it would be possible for the board to adjourn just on the one variance, I think.
We could go
right,
explore
Lisa?
that.
But that's, I don't know if everyone is ready, you know, or if they still have questions on the others, anything else? Yeah.
Is this something the county has to weigh in on?
The county did weigh in. There is in your packet, a response from the county. They said it was a matter of local concern. Really? Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, I mean, that's up to you if you want to just adjourn, or if you want to adjourn the discussion of just that particular monolith that Art had a question about.
So if it would be possible that we could do it in that broken up, and the reason I say that is, as Brian pointed out, there is, for us, when we went through these processes of sign height, there's a lot of people involved in getting through these signs, to vetting them, sizing, lighting, talking, there's an operator, there's everybody. So we would like to, if that's the only sign in question, get the others approved so they can start production, get those moving through applications and things like that, while we go back and talk to the group, because we may not be able to come to a consensus before the next meeting submission deadline, and I wouldn't want to hold the others up. So that would be the only reason I would ask, if we could do that.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. So we can adjourn sign number 2.
Monolith 2. That's what we want to do, adjourn monolith 2.
That's right, yeah.
Correct.
You offered it.
Right, which is, on the agenda, it's variances 2 and 3, because it needed a variance for sign and size.
Right.
So if the board were going to deliberate tonight, they would deliberate on 1, 4, and 5.
Okay, so we'll look to adjourn 2 and 3 pending renderings and
Mhm.
different
Yeah,
feedback on that.
I'll send that.
For resubmission.
Understood.
So it's not likely that you'll be back for the September meeting, so shall we adjourn to October then, and just, yeah?
I think that's great, yeah.
Okay, so October 19th, I believe, 16th, I'm sorry, October 16th.
Adjourn until October 16th. Okay, so if there's no further comments, I'd look to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, that's, ends the items on our agenda for business. And I would suggest we just take a 5-minute break, move to adjourn for 5 minutes, and come back at 7:10. 7:10.
Go to 7-Eleven.
It's what? 7:11? 7:10. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.